Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints, learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
All right. Today, the saint is called the Wanderer. Places have a way of holding stories, not just in its stones and rivers, not just in its legends and lilt, but in the wind itself. Wind that whispers of travelers who became teachers, of captives who became shepherds, of strangers who became saints. And before this land ever knew his name, it knew his footsteps. For he came first not as hero, not as bishop, not as herald of the faith, but as a slave. For today's episode, we're going to call him the Wanderer. He had not been born on that particular island. His home was centuries away in Roman Britain, a place with Latin roads and Christian households, and the comfort of familiarity. He was the son of a deacon, the grandson of a priest. Faith was the family business, but faith is not always the family language. As a youth, he didn't much care for religion. He said it himself later. He drifted, he shrugged, he ignored. And that's often when life intervenes. At 16, the sea stole him. Raiders swept along the coast, capturing him with others, and carried him across waters he had never imagined crossing. One day he was a boy, the next he was property. The Wanderer found himself tending sheep on cold hills where the rain felt ancient and the silence felt eternal. But silence, if you sit in it long enough, becomes a sanctuary. And the boy who had once ignored God began to pray, out of loneliness at first, then out of hunger, then out of hope. He prayed hundreds of times a day, he would later write. And in that lonely world, prayer began to shape him. 6 years passed. Then one night came a voice, not the voice of a raider or a master, but one in a dream, telling him, "Your ship is ready." And the Wanderer walked 200 miles through forests and fields, evading capture, following only a memory and a prayer. He reached a coast, he found a ship, and he escaped. Back home again. He was welcomed with tears and astonishment, but the story wasn't over. Because the Wanderer had brought something back from Ireland besides scars. He had brought a calling. One night he dreamed again. He saw a man named Victorious bringing him letters sent from the people of Ireland, and he heard voices calling to him, "Come and walk among us once more." He knew what it meant, and he knew that what it would cost. Ireland was no place for the faint-hearted. Pagan kings ruled, druids held influence, foreigners were not trusted, especially not ones carrying a strange message about a crucified God. And yet the Wanderer, now grown, now determined, returned, not as prisoner, not as runaway, but as a messenger. He traveled the island on foot, slept outdoors, confronted chieftains, baptized thousands. He spoke simply, plainly, not like a scholar, but like a shepherd, because that's what he had been. He founded churches, ordained priests, converted clans, and defied kings. And though the legend embroidered the tale, he stood for something true, that the love of God can reach even the far edge of the world, and it did. There are stories you've heard, stories of snakes, stories of shamrocks, stories of fires that would not die. The snake's a symbol, more than likely anyway, of Ireland's spiritual dangers, its pagan shadows, driven out by his message. The shamrock, a teaching tool, perhaps to explain a mystery bigger than the world itself. The fires, echoes of the paschal flame he lit freely in defiance of king's decrees, choosing obedience to God over the fear of man. But the real miracles were quieter. A hardened raider forgiving his enemy, a druid laying down his spells, a chieftain choosing mercy over vengeance, a flock of believers remembering a shepherd who once walked their hills in chains. Those were his victories, not won by a sword, not won by rank, but won by walking. He never claimed greatness. He never sought position. He wrote at the end of his life that he was a sinner, unlearned, at least of all the faithful. And yet Ireland called him father. When he died, some say near Sowell, where he planted his first church, he left behind not monuments, but a nation changed, a land that would become a beacon of Christian learning through centuries of turmoil, sending missionaries across Europe like embers carried on the wind, all because one captive boy learned to pray on a lonely hillside and answered a call that returned him to the place of his captivity, not to reclaim his past, but to redeem it. The wanderer had a name sung in March by millions who never knew the cold he felt, the hunger he bore, the courage he carried, a name etched not in stone, but in the memory of a nation that he loved fiercely. His name, of course, was Patrick. Saint, missionary, father of the Irish, and confessor of a faith he learned the hard way. So St. Patrick's Day is on Tuesday, and I'm not going to give you a meal plan and a drink. If you want to drink with some Irish cream, if you want a meal, you can't outdo the basics. Corned beef and cabbage. I know that's I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and you know what? There's always shepherd's pie and other stuff you can do. But honestly, if you like corned beef and cabbage, and by the way, corned beef and cabbage isn't even an Irish thing. It's actually an American thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because corned beef was really, really cheap, and we had a lot of Irish immigrants at the time.
Was like an Irish American thing?
Or
immigrant thing?
Oh. Yeah, it was an Irish American thing because corned beef was cheap.
So, I tell you what, I love a corned beef and cabbage.
Me too.
I love it.
I love it. So he was a 5th century. He was a 5th century. So yeah, that was about his time period. So think I guess 400s into the 500s. So
wow. Yeah. I was excited for this one because I figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I did. I don't always know a lot of these, but I did know that one. So I was quite excited.
Yeah. No, I always try to choose what I hope will be the more obvious one. In fact, the one that's coming up, hoping that we do meet again next week and can do it. But the one next week, I think you'll pick up on real fast too.
Oh, okay.
I tried my best to hide it, but sometimes it's just too hard.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. You said St. Patrick's Day is Tuesday?
Yeah, it is Tuesday. It is March 17th. Now, remember, we usually celebrate the his death day.
Right.
Doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always work that way, but it is typically that way. Yeah. Now, part of the reason that St. Patrick got to be so big is because St. Patrick was always celebrated in Lent, and since it was considered a major feast day, I mean, like not just like a commemoration day, but like an actual feast day. It meant that you could break the fast for that one day.
Yeah.
And so if you were like fasting heavy during Lent, it was the one big day where you didn't have to fast. And so obviously, as with all of these days, it became a massive party.
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean,
so it's on Tuesday, so that means probably no church on Wednesday.
That's right.
Pastor Chris won't be able to stand. So
it'll be all that green beer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You Lutherans, you guys are okay with it, A lot of German.
We like our beer. I'm not gonna pretend we don't.
You incorporate a little Irish in there, It's like off the rails,
That's right. But yeah, and I mean, of course, the shamrock, as legend says, that he was using the shamrock or the clover to teach about the Holy Trinity. if you ever get a chance to look it up and you haven't already, do so. Look up the Lutheran satire, Donald and Connell, talk to St. Patrick, and it's pretty funny.
Donald and what was that?
I think, isn't it Donald and Connell or something like that?
I got no idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hold on. Now I got to look it up. Jeez.
You're saying it like I would know this. Donald and Connell.
Or is it Connell and Donald?
Connell.
I don't even
Connell. St. Patrick's. Okay.
Lutheran satire. Look up.
Okay. Okay. It's popped up. I'm going to watch this as soon as we get off.
Oh yeah. You should definitely. I mean, he has a bunch of them. But look up the first one. It's called Bad Analogies, I think.
Wow, geesh. Yeah, I have it pulled up. I'm going to watch that as soon as we're done. Wow. 2.5 million views, everybody. I guess everybody's seen it but me. So, okay.
Yeah, this is one of his more popular ones. A guy by the name of Hans Feeney does these. And this is by far his most popular series in terms of these two guys. So anyway, they're a hoot, though.
Yeah.
They're a hoot. So the whole series is really good.
I'm going to check that out. All right.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Here, we're going to close her up.
Yeah.
And so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.